Welcome back to part 3 with the EV experts. Today Martin starts by giving us an insight into the current EV market.
Well, clearly we've been on a roller coaster. Anyone that's owned an EV or anyone that's been near the market will know that 2 years ago, post-COVID, there was a huge shortage of supply of vehicles, shortage of components and strong consumer demand. That meant that EVs were selling for, sometimes used EVs were selling above list price. I had a Cupra that was 10% above list price and went immediately. We've had Model 3s that were 18 months old selling for £3,000 less than list. It was a crazy marketplace. But when that roller coaster goes up, the roller coaster comes down. And the market has gone down. The word crash is too strong. It has gone down because the supply is available. And also the supply of used vehicle is coming on stream. Mainly because of the salary sacrifice scheme has meant that lots of EVs have been sold as company cars, and that's great. New entrants have come into the marketplace, and that has meant that we've got a lot of reduction in the list price of cars. The market has become more competitive. It's all great news for the consumer. More and more people can now afford an EV, and EVs are on price parity with conventional fueled vehicles most of the time. And some particular examples, I think of a Model 3 compared to a BMW 3 Series, the EV is actually cheaper than the equivalent petrol or diesel vehicle. And we're also seeing that petrol diesel vehicles are losing around 4% per month at the moment, because they're in that situation where if an EV is cheaper, the EV's either got to go up in value or the petrol diesel go down. So there is a lot of flux in the marketplace at the moment.
The last 3 months have been really strong. We're seeing a lot of customer demand and consistent demand. Last year, to be honest, it was a roller coaster. I think there's been a lot of mixed messaging from the government about whether this switch is or isn't happening, and that has made people less confident to make that switch. Demand just increasing. And there are people who we spoke to a year ago or 2 years ago who were saying, yeah, I want to make the switch, but I want to make the most out of my petrol car. It's just passed its MOT, or if it passes its MOT, I'm going to put off for 12 months and I'll be back to see you in 12 months time. And then back they come, and then we talk it through. The car goes through another MOT, and people buying electric cars, they're not necessarily going to make the decision today or this weekend or this month. And that's, I think, what's great about what we do, because we will talk through that, we will keep in touch, and then when you're ready, and that could be several years after you've met us, that could be 3 months, it could be 3 days after you've met us, we will do our absolute best to find you a really great car that's going to really work for you.
There's a lot of negativity in the press and from the government about EVs. Is that something that, do you have a particular opinion on that?
Particularly last year, really negative media narrative with stuff that's just not true, and it's been very frustrating. But again, I'm seeing a change in that. The facts seem to at last be filtering through to the media and to social media in particular.
Following on from the negativity, do you often find that coming in with customers who have difficult questions about EVs and some of the problems that they've been told they might have?
Yeah, and it's not uncommon to have a couple where, one's really bought into it and really keen and really excited, and the other one's perhaps a bit skeptical and less confident about making the move. And so we do have some robust conversations. The main thing about the media that really frustrated me is this thing about not comparing like with like. So for example, they would talk about how much it costs to fuel a car using petrol that you're buying at your local supermarket versus how much it would cost to fuel your EV from the most expensive source, a motorway charge point. Why don't you compare it with the price of the petrol at the motorway service station as well, which is always much higher? So it's things like that I think have been really unhelpful and actually not correct, that have made people not sure about the benefits of the switch and whether to go for it or not.
For the last 2 years, the Telegraph and the Mail between them have almost run out of it. They're going to crush car parks, they catch fire, they make too much tyre pollution. I mean, we've heard it all, and we hear it on the forecourt a lot. We are finding the market is shifting. It's shifting from innovators and early adopters to early majority. An early majority have a shorter buying purchase, and they're often a much more rational purchase than maybe an early adopter. So actually, there are haters, but there are people who go, just makes sense. The lady who bought the Megane this morning and drove away, she had a Nissan Duke. She said, I've got a driveway with a charge point, new home, easiest decision she's made. The current administration have made a political decision to try and divide the country on those that are for net zero and those that are against net zero. And that is very disappointing. And clearly, those political decisions have been made for electoral reasons, and I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but we're the only country in Europe where a consumer doesn't get any help to buy a new or used EV. And to hit those targets, I almost don't mind that they cut back on the date going back to 2035, but what they've also done is they've kept the ZE mandate. So manufacturers this year have to sell 22% of their new cars as EVs. And then it goes up to 36%. And by 2030, it's 80%. We can't do that and kick the ball down the road for 2035. It's just not a clear picture.
So, using your crystal ball to look into the future, what can you see changing in the immediate or short-term future?
I think as we go forward, more and more people are going to make the switch. I think it will probably happen for people when they get to a point with their petrol and diesel car, either it breaks down or it needs an MOT, it needs a service, and it's going to be £1,000 or something like that. They're like, okay, right, now's the time to do it. So I think we're going to see demand increasing. And the other thing that's quite exciting is that obviously from 2020, there are a lot more electric cars being made by all the different manufacturers. And obviously a lot of them, new cars are sold on PCPs and leases, which might be 2 years or 3 years. So we're now starting to see a lot of new second-hand cars, if that makes sense, coming into the market from those products. I mean, more supply than we've ever experienced.
If you've not owned an EV, then you think charging infrastructure is the big problem. Most people realise that actually, if you can charge at home, so 60% of the UK population, charging at home means that they will rarely charge away from home. So we believe that the rapid charge network in the UK is already good enough, but is increasing massively. If you look at the number of rapid chargers out there, you go down any major road, you've got choice, and that means that the price of electricity is going to be coming down, but more important than that, there's availability of chargers. What needs to happen is that the last 40% don't get left behind. And by that I mean the 40% that haven't got a driveway or ability to charge at home. The government has actually put the money up. The councils aren't great at pulling that money back and investing. Curbside charging, making car parks, putting enough charging in. That is what's really needed. On a personal level, we live in a village, connected curb. They've had a rapid charger for ages. And I've got a neighbour who said, well, yeah, but the trouble is it's 75p a kilowatt. I'm better off with my diesel. They now charge 35p a kilowatt on the 7 kilowatt chargers that they've got there. That's close enough to what you pay at home for it to make sense to do it. And that's a simple thing of putting 4 chargers in a car park that people can use overnight. Then all of a sudden, that just makes life so much easier. So yeah, get the local authorities spending that government money to roll out the 7 kilowatt network.
There are a lot of new brands coming onto the market. So the Chinese brands, some of the manufacturers are setting up sub-brands. What are your opinion on those? And do you actually get the chance to test drive some of the new cars to see whether they'll be a good fit for your business?
Yep, absolutely. No, we have. A lot of them are great fun. Again, for us, it's not just about the car and what that delivers, but for us, it's also about the onward experience, about, as I said, it being serviced and maintained. I don't want people to own their car just for a year. I'd like them to own it for like 10 years. And so as soon as those new entrants have really good service solutions and maintenance and repair solutions established, absolutely, there isn't any reason why we wouldn't stock them on our forecourt.
Back in the day, I worked for Nokia, and we did a lot of research on after iPhone and Android was launched, and a whole range of Chinese brands. And all the research said I'm going to stick with Nokia for my next 2 phones. I'm not going to try one of these fancy ones. They're too big. The battery doesn't last long enough. Yeah, the rest was history. So my take on it would be that when a technology changes, then a consumer is more open to switching brands. You know, you buy a Mercedes because traditionally they've had the best combustion engines. When a Mercedes has a C80L battery, does it matter whether it's a Mercedes or a BYD or a whatever brand?
And finally, you've got anything you'd like to say to Sussex EV's members about EV Experts?
Well, do come and visit, particularly myself in Guildford, because that's, I guess, your local EV Experts branch. I love hearing people's experiences. This is one of the reasons why I buy quite a lot of cars from people. So I'm using platforms like Motorway, for example, and CarWow, where individuals can put their cars up for sale directly. And what I love about that is meeting the person, talking through to them, what did you love about it, what didn't you love, because that informs us and enables us to help more people buy the right EV.
You're welcome to EV Experts. We'd love to see you. Let us know you're a member, and that will certainly help us sharpen the pencil when negotiations happen. Contact us about your EV, because we're really active buying EVs. We buy probably more than any other company. So we're really keen to buy EVs, and we'd love to sell you an EV.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
A huge thank you to Estelle and Martin from EV Experts for making us so welcome and sharing their vast experience with EVs. Please like and subscribe, as it really helps us to grow the channel. See you all next time on Sussex EVs.